Blah, 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 blah.
Ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum,
Bum, bum,
ba-da-dum,
bum, bum, bum.
Welcome
ba, ba, ba.
to the Good
Bum,
Kush.
bum, bum,
Alex is not here this week, so
bum, bum, bum,
we don't
bum,
actually have
bum,
his beautiful little guitar intro. By the way,
bum,
that guitar intro was never actually planned.
bum, bum,
Alex just kind of started doing it one day, and it became semi-official. So this week, you're just gonna have to settle with whatever that nonsense was. So for today, I have moved back to the land of my inheritance. So James and Kara are actually here with me. So there's going to be less switching between icons on the screen because from out of town, the only people we have joining us are Braden and Josh. Magnificent.
Hello.
Let's be honest, you're the only people you need to come from out of town.
Unless if you want me to log on several different devices on several different accounts, make it seem like it's a bunch of different people, but only my voice will come through.
That is also an option.
That's kind of terrifying as an idea.
I do have access to at least 3 or 4 laptops, and this is not one of them.
Hey, I could get on 3 different accounts.
Whose are the other 4?
Mine, mother's, the family one, and then dad's work laptop.
Okay, so that's 3.
Or maybe
I
we
guess you
still
did
might
say
have
3 or
the
4.
broken one, so that would be 5.
Okay, never mind. I stand corrected. That is a terrifying reality, and there's a small part of me that kind of wants that to be a thing. So now directed at the viewers/listeners, because let's be honest, you're not here for the video content of this segment because
There isn't any.
Yeah, there really isn't any.
Unless if they really enjoy the icon swapping, then I can really make it intense for them.
Yeah, it's very, very high quality.
Like us.
That's an accurate statement.
We are very high quality.
It has been, I want to say, somewhere close to. See, the last recorded episode of Cush was when I was in Texas. That was a month and a half ago.
That
Yeehaw.
is because we are bad at scheduling.
I mean, that's fair. Sorry, apparently.
We have dings on.
Yep.
What kind of wings or dings? Are they wing dings?
They're wingdings.
I
So
can sing.
they're wingdings that can sing, and they are. I don't know. It's like almost 10 p.m. My brain is not working right now, but neither is Kara's. James seems to be doing fine, somehow.
I mean, I did get to sleep in today because I had nothing. Nothing.
Yeah, all of us kind of moved in either yesterday or today. I moved in last night. Kara moved in this morning, and James kind of just materialized in his apartment. He actually doesn't have any worldly possessions. It's very impressive.
That's probably one of the bigger lies that you've told.
Yeah.
But not the materializing in my apartment part.
Well, fun fact. Even though he didn't technically own any material possessions, the things on his body currently are all things he stole. So, while not technically his material possessions, they are material possessions that he owns.
Okay.
Interesting.
I need to write that down because that's a great workaround for like a rogue character who's disguised as a monk. They'll be like, "Have you given up all of your worldly possessions?" Yes, I have. Then someone goes to his house and he's got like tons of gold and all that, and they're like, "What? I thought you said you gave up all your worldly possessions."
This is not my house. And then you just have to roll for persuasion.
Or initiative.
That's true. It depends on who enters your house.
Showing off your humility to the local guard. Yeah, no, these are all my worldly possessions. Wait a minute. I got a notice for that like 2 days ago. Isn't it supposed to be missing?
Anyway, so because the last episode was so long ago, we've gotten a little bit off track, but we're trying to be good people. Meanwhile, Kara's falling asleep. Poor Kara.
Lies. We're not trying to be good people.
So we are trying to pick up exactly where we left off, and that is
Space.
Space. Want to go to space?
Space. Yeah. So
Did you guys know that there's
Gonna
a
see
lot
me
of
in
it?
space.
we briefly mentioned this idea of talking about space, and by extension, Kara's space camps and knowledge of space and whatnot. It's kind of a broad topic because, space is literally everywhere in this dimension. So
That is a fact.
we have a lot of material that we can work with. So we're kind of just going to see where this goes. So that'll be fun. But I think the one thing that's on everyone's minds is the space sphere. Space sphere. Sphere.
Space of space.
That brings fear into my life. Kara and MK are currently trying very hard not to get their laughing into the microphone. And me narrating this is making it all the harder. It's okay to let it out.
Okay, real quick.
All right.
Side note. I want one Twisted Fate in TFT.
Also,
Is
fair.
that too much to ask for?
Sorry, Josh, can you say that one more time?
You don't. Not really. It's not super relevant. I'm just getting RNG hardcore. Never mind.
That's fair.
No, I just lost a game. It's okay.
What are you playing?
I was playing Teamfight Tactics.
I've never heard of that one.
It is a League of Legends style of game.
So it's a
It's-
Game of auto
sorry,
chess.
It is a auto chess style of game done through League of Legends.
interesting. I'll have to check that out later. So I have a thought, space-wise. So lately I've been watching a lot of videos by, what's his name, Chris Heinzfield? Is that his name? He's an astronaut.
Chris Hadfield.
Hadfield. Oh, I'm thinking of someone else. Yeah, Chris Hadfield.
Chris
There's
Seinfeld.
no S in it,
Hadfield.
I think. I don't actually keep track of all of the
Time to
astronauts.
do
There's
a
lot of them.
Google.
I'm pretty sure it's Hadfield, or along those lines. It has in there because he is past tense.
Chris Hadfield. He does not have field. He had field.
He had field.
He sold field to go to space.
I'm pretty sure it's Chris Hemsworth.
Yes.
Yeah, so when Chris Hemsworth went to space,
When you think about it, a lot of Chris, basically all the Chris's went to
oh crap.
a very few amount that have not gone to space.
Well, yeah, because you had,
So Chris Hemsworth, Chris Pratt.
Chris
Did Chris Evans ever go to space?
Yeah, in the last movie, Endgame.
I forgot. Yes, of course.
It was a very.
How did I
brief thing,
forget
but-
that?
Yep, that was it.
Chris Pine.
Chris Pine was Star Trek.
He was still space.
Price.
So basically, if your name is Chris, you have a high probability of going into space.
Well, we have a friend named Chris, and I need to talk to him about that because we didn't even get to go skydiving when we planned on it. So if that punk is going to go to space without me, I'm gonna throw down.
He probably already has,
That's
knowing him.
actually no, that's 100% fair. So anyway, so I was watching the videos by Chris Hadfield because now I know his name correctly, and he just shared some really interesting stuff. Had some really interesting video footage. If you haven't seen it, he did a live performance of Ground Control to Major Tom while he was on the International Space Station, and it's actually strangely moving. It was just very inspirational.
It was actually, I would say it's better than the David Bowie version, which sounds blasphemous, but I would have to say it was better.
Well, we might have to fight on that. But
I need to look that up now.
yeah, it's really. I'm surprised you haven't seen it.
I don't see everything space. There's a lot.
Okay, I guess that's fair.
Space
Yeah,
is
it's
a
true
large
on more
place,
than one
MK.
level.
I
Space
can't
is
keep
the
track of everything.
what?
Space is the place with the help for the astronaut folks.
I was thinking that. You beat me by 1 second.
It's because you started it.
I got distracted by your memes, dude. What the heck?
I don't even know at this point.
It's so weird. It's
It's a surreal meme.
surreal memes. I'm not even going to try to describe it because I don't know what's happening.
Because it's
Speaking of
surreal.
speaking of memes and space, how do you guys feel about Area 51 memes?
I feel that they're very invasive.
I feel
I
like
think
if
that-
anyone goes through with it, they're actually going to get hurt.
I feel like that there will be at least 3 people that will show up on
least
September 20th.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. The
At
funny
least
thing-
3, minimum.
The funny thing too is that it's obviously and very clearly it's a joke, it's a meme, but you know that the government is still going to have to prepare for it because
There are people who would take it literally.
exactly. And so I know this has already been put out there through memeage and all that, but one of my favorite things is this idea that someone somewhere in the governmental hierarchy had to explain Naruto running. And that makes me very happy.
No, guys. Area 51 is a government experiment. The aliens need more food, and they're the ones that created the memes. They want people to come.
I think
This
they're
is
just
their
gonna
plan.
That's a
announce
good
that
question.
themselves.
Who started the petition?
Can we go back to what Kara was just saying?
Wait, what did she say?
I said I think they're just going to knock out all the people with that nicktails. And anyone who gets that reference, I appreciate you.
Woo! If you're one of our 90 followers.
Yeah, I don't know what percentage of our followers have seen the show Stargate SG-1, but it's worth it.
If you get the reference! Sorry. If you get the reference, comment below that you get it. And, I don't know, we'll give you a thumbs up or we'll say your name or something. I don't know.
Not if I comment first.
Hey,
If you didn't get the
comment.
reference, still comment, but comment, I got the reference, just to confuse them.
Oh no.
Alright. It sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a plan, Stan. Don't forget your bran muffins. Whew.
No plan survives first contact with implementation.
Or aliens.
That's usually true, actually.
Have you ever seen someone who made plans to go team up with aliens and then it actually worked out for them in the end?
I mean, yes, but
Okay.
not according to the original plan.
E.T. Area 51. No, Planet 51.
That did
Monsters vs. Aliens.
None of those went according to plan.
All of them went according to plan.
Whose plan?
The directors.
Exactly. See, James is on point here.
Okay, I can't actually argue with that. That's solid.
I mean, you can argue with it, you're just wrong.
Ha!
That is true, actually. You can always argue. Doesn't mean you're arguing for things that actually can make sense. If Alex were here, we could talk about flat Earth, and we'd have plenty of proof of that.
But we do.
Yeah, touche. We have brought it up in previous episodes, so I think we already have all the proof that we need. Anyway, like I was mentioning earlier about Chris Hadfield, I don't even remember where I was going with that.
You've been watching a lot of his videos.
Oh yeah, I've been watching a lot of his videos,
Yeah.
and well, now it's not even interesting, but I thought it would be a good conversation starter. Basically, all of the food they have up there involves some kind of water. Like, they have to rehydrate all the foods, and the reason why it's important that all the foods have some kind of water in them is so that you don't get crumbs or floaty bits. They were talking about how it's important that all the food sticks together, because you get a bit of cracker that goes into the wrong air vent, and suddenly you're missing a space station.
Same reason why they don't like graphite pencils.
Yes, can we talk about the myth that actually now? Because there's this myth going around.
It's been around for a while.
For, like, ever. Like, it actually came up in one of my engineering textbooks, and I was really mad about it. But there's this myth going around that the United States spent whatever crazy amount of money to develop a pen that would work in space, and the Russians just used pencils. The problem with that is that pencils break and they get graphite dust everywhere, no matter what you do. And graphite dust floating around in your spacecraft is very bad because A, it's a fine particle. You don't like fine particles in anything, and B, it's conductive.
Oof.
This is a bad idea. Nobody
Mind
uses pencils
and
in space.
space station blown.
But it's really funny. Mind and space station. It's really funny because this example always gets brought up to like bash on the US and like their space program and how dumb it is. And I'm not saying that the Russians didn't have some cool developments. I mean,
Sputnik.
But like,
Sputnik, Gagarin, Tereshkova, like
I only know Sputnik because I'm an uncultured swine, apparently.
I think it has more to do with the fact that I'm a little obsessed.
Hey, space is
Well-
cool. There's a lot of it.
Yes.
The only reason I know Sputnik is because I'm a huge fan of potatoes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is side tangent. No, gotta finish the first tangent. The whole thing is that they use this example to be like, oh look, the USA is so dumb.
They make everything more complicated than it needs to be, was the point, I think.
Yeah, and it was like, oh, we just use pencils, and it's like, well, no, that's a bad idea. Don't do that. Why would you do that?
But the world doesn't get it.
They never did.
At first, I didn't get it either, but then, Kara brought that up, and that actually makes perfect sense.
See, Kara, you've educated one person.
Thank you.
It means I've done something worthwhile tonight. Excellent.
Yay! Meanwhile, I spent most of my day sitting trying to fix a computer. Okay, so fun story. Do not remove don't remove paths on your computer when you're doing some reconfigurations, because it can make your computer think that Java does not exist. I may or may not have spent a couple hours
Trying to exist Java again.
You just
Yeah.
need to not delete things on your computer ever.
Okay, yeah, this is the second time something really bad has happened on the computer. One time I deleted my entire hard drive because I moved the folder containing everything into the trash can without thinking about it. I just did it. I don't know.
Mega oof.
Yeah, it was super mega oof. Anyway, it wasn't good, but it all worked out well.
I mean, you did something productive today. You helped me move in.
This is true. So points for MK.
Yep, lots of points.
Yay.
Ooh.
That song has been stuck in my head. And I listened to it and it's still there. Anyway, space.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
Did you know? Okay, so there is actually this YouTube video that I just saw this morning. It was by Veritasium, something like that. Basically, NASA is working on what kind of looks like the first drone or propelled drone that is going to fly around on Mars.
That's cool.
Really interesting because they had to calculate the RPM of these two rotating blades that are made out of really neat looking carbon fiber material. Basically, they have to reach it up to like 2,300 RPM, something really fast that you never see on like a helicopter or even like a normal drone. probably. I don't know. Don't quote me on that.
Well,
And don't look it up either because I want to sound smart. And essentially, they're able to get it so that it can actually fly around on Mars for about 90 seconds per charge.
that's cool.
It's a really cool idea. It's actually been in the works for a little while. The trickiest thing is that it's really hard to build flying craft on Mars just because the atmosphere is so much thinner.
Yeah.
And
So
That's why you have to
they're
have
they're
so
a
much.
lot more thrust.
Yeah,
mhm.
exactly. You just need a whole lot more force to be able to generate the necessary lift. So that's why they have to get such high RPMs. Is because there's
Yeah.
so little air to work with.
It's really interesting because they were saying that they have to be really careful so that they don't break the speed of sound with their propellers. So what they said is that they're at about, I think, 70% of the speed of sound. And they're also making sure that their like the craft itself is very lightweight. So it only weighs about 4 pounds and it's like decently sized. You think that something like that would weigh maybe 15 pounds or more.
Well, it's especially impressive because I did the one thing you told me not to do. I looked it up.
Yeah, it's really interesting stuff.
Well,
And they've actually been using it and testing it out in their little vacuum test chamber, and they've been able to get it off the ground a little bit.
that's cool. The thing I'm reading on here that I'm finding insanely impressive. So apparently, the individual blades are over a meter long.
Yes.
Each propeller is over a meter long. That's stupid. I love that. Also, they're capable of spinning at 3,400 rotations per minute, and the traditional drones' propellers are 8,000 RPMs.
Yep. I mean, more surface area, more lift.
Yeah. So, they are slower than traditional drones, but traditional drones are normally. How big would you say that is? Like 3 inches, 4 inches?
It depends on the drone. There's
Also
there's
fair.
some that are like 4 inches. There are several that are like a foot.
Yeah. But none
Like
of
really,
those
yeah.
come close to the magnificence that is the over 1 meter per blade Martian drone for those sick trick shots that.
Overall, that drone is still less than 4 pounds, or around 4 pounds.
Kara's over here, and I can't tell if she's like trying not to explode with like comments or if she's dying because of the stupid, ignorant comments we're all making.
That was definitely a almost facepalm against the table. I recognized it for what it was.
I mean, in fairness, you've also both spent a lot of time around me.
Okay.
It's okay, because the important thing is that we all love each other.
Yeah, no, it was mostly just as a reaction to the idea of that particular random YouTuber, but that's a discussion for later.
So, speaking of random things, you want to talk about Kara facepalming.
Oh no.
So, a little bit of backstory. So, Kara has this weird tendency to just kind of magically appear, and it's sometimes a little bit terrifying.
It's true.
But it's
I've seen
usually
it happen.
it's usually pretty cool. And that's part of the reason why we think she's the player character, because none of us can teleport around, but she can. And so that means she obviously...
Fast traveling.
Yeah, she has a fast travel feature. And so I was working over the summer, and there was someone I was working with who just made a side comment about the moon and how there was no gravity on the moon. And I know that it was just like a slip of the tongue. I knew
Or
that she
was it?
meaning to say reduced gravity. But the very instant she said that, I legitimately expected Kara to materialize. Like, she would have no reason for being there at all. But I 100%, for like a split second, expected Kara to just be there.
Well, did she?
No, I
No.
mean, I can't apparate to BYU because it's a dark zone. It blocks my magic.
Understandable. Have a nice day.
You can't fast travel to enemy territory. That's just how
That is true.
Okay.
I have no words. I mean, I have words, but.
I guess we're adding up the list of bullets.
It's definitely worthwhile.
No, you're not wrong. What were we talking about?
Space.
Space!
I thought this was the whole topic of this episode of Cush.
I mean,
Kind of a broad topic.
it is. To quote Kingman from Adventure Time. Well, I guess it's more of a paraphrase, but literally everywhere in this dimension, including where we stand, is in space. They were trying to find someone who was in space, and he was making fun of them because, you know, that's kind of a really broad area.
Ha!
That depends on the definition you're using.
Enlighten us, Kara, because
Well-
this is your field, man.
This is your domain.
We
Own
are just visitors to this realm.
I mean, technically, there's a few different ways to define where space is, because it's not just where the atmosphere ends, because the atmosphere just gradually gets less dense as you go higher. I'm not certain I have the number right, but I think the Kármán line is generally considered to be 60 kilometers. That could be wrong, but that's the number that's coming to mind for some reason.
I'll go with it.
But
Though I did see, I mean, this could just be one of those sites spitting out what they say is science, but it's.
I mean, there's a few different, like, the Kármán line is one. There's where the atmosphere gets a certain percent less thick. There's where the gravity is at a certain percentage of where it would be on the ground. There's a few different definitions.
Yeah, there was one I was seeing that was saying that the Earth's atmosphere could actually extend way further than we previously thought, and that under that new definition, humans have technically never even left Earth's atmosphere.
I could see that. I mean, if you're just counting, like, if there's any possible molecule of air that's technically possible, because, I mean, it's actually something that people have to account for, is there's always, if you're in a low enough orbit, there's drag.
Yeah.
So,
Interesting. Fascinating. So, Kara, tell us about Space Camp.
anything in particular? Because there's a lot there.
What is Space Camp?
Did you ever get to fly any spaceships?
Just
Yeah.
simulators.
Did you ever build a campfire in space?
We didn't actually go to space, because if you're basing this off of the movie Space Camp, it's just, no, please.
Well,
Huh. Apparently there's a movie called Space Camp.
There is, and it's an 80s movie, and it's simultaneously hilarious and completely terrible.
That's kind
Kinda
of like
wanna
a-
watch it.
Are you guys familiar with the premise of this movie?
Nope.
I
No.
remember looking
Because I
at-
didn't know it existed before this minute.
Yeah, so the premise of this movie is that this group of teenagers at space camp somehow wins the opportunity to be on the shuttle during a test. And during this test, through the interference of this robot, they accidentally launch the space shuttle. And just from there are so many things wrong with it. Because we actually watched this movie at Space Camp, and we just spent the entire time pointing out how ridiculous it is.
I mean, fair enough.
Which was entertaining in and of itself. But it's just, there are so many things wrong with that scenario.
I mean, the equivalent to that for people who play like D&D and other RPG games is Darkest Dungeons. Have you ever?
I'm not familiar with this.
So it's this
Are you ready to RPG?
RPG. Basically, there was this-
RPG.
I can't remember what they were
RPG.
called, but there were a bunch of like insanely extremist Christian, like little panel comic things that were basically denouncing.
It came out in the 70s, I believe.
Yeah, so during the Satanic Panic.
Yay.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that one?
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, so the Satanic Panic was basically around the time of the creation of D&D. Somehow people misunderstood that this game where you can cast spells and kind of, just hang out with your friends and, go on adventures, somehow they, mixed that up, just that fun time with...
Actually, one of you posted a picture about this that I remember being very entertained by.
Yeah, there's screenshots of the comic, and it's actually pretty funny to read. But basically, the whole Satanic Panic was basically people were saying, hey, did you know that if you play D&D, you are literally worshipping Satan? And
Hence, Satanic Panic.
Exactly. And so this came out during the Satanic Panic. It was a extremist Christian cartoon. He's made several of them. They're all awful, but kind of hilarious. And this one was called Darkest Dungeons. It was this comic about two girls who go to college, and then they are bored, and so then they end up, making friends with some people that play like D&D, and then it turns out that D&D is a cult, and so they get like super wrapped up in it, and then they like are awful, and one of them commits suicide because their character dies, and like it's so extreme. And then the ending is one of them going to church and basically praying for forgiveness, and the last panel is her like burning all of her like D&D books and character sheets and all that. And in the end of it, it's just like, and another soul has been saved thanks to, fire, I guess. And yeah, Carrie's giving the best face right now. So yeah, so they made a movie
It doesn't
adaptation.
stop there, though.
No, so they made a movie adaptation of it that is actually...
This sounds like a delightful comic.
It's so great. You guys should watch it. So the movie adaptation is actually very true to the source material, but I think the people who made the movie
Might have had a different perception on the whole thing.
Well, they still kept the exact same thing, but they pushed it to its most extreme. Like,
And it's also modernized.
yeah, so it's modernized, and they also try to keep everything like super crazy and bizarre to keep that, original feel. But if I remember correctly, the people who made the movie play D&D. So it's kind of funny. But long story short, Darkest Dungeons, basically it's the same concept. Two girls go to college. They're looking to make friends, and they end up hanging out with the RPGers, because that's a group of people. And all the RPGers
I
wear...
think it's.
Sorry. Yeah,
It was really weird because
that's fair.
it was really strange because the trailer that we saw, there was a whole thing where this dude was sitting on top of a table. No, he was standing on top of what looked like almost like a ping pong table or whatever in like some basement. Don't know what, but there's like a boatload of people there. More people than you would ever be able to have in one campaign. I don't see how that's even surmountable. And they're all chanting RPG while this one dude is holding a solo cup.
Yeah, so basically...
So like what we do on a regular basis.
Exactly. While we stand around tables casting demonic spells and summoning Lucifer. But the whole idea is basically in this universe that RPGers are the cool kids, and they all wear like leather jackets, and they're all like super serious, and none of them are even remotely nerdy, and they're all really athletic and cool.
Which is how you know that this is absolute fiction.
I mean, Terry Crews did play D&D.
This is true. Yeah, he does. It's kind of...
There's a
cool.
surprising amount of super duper famous people that actually played D&D.
So does Vin
Stephen
Play or
Colbert is
play?
another
Because
one of
there's a
them.
Big difference.
Play currently. Vin Diesel. He...
Oh yeah.
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 D&D Diesel is so much fun.
Oh yeah. And then Stephen
But we
Colbert.
can't forget about Matt Mercer, though.
Freaking, did you know? Sorry, I know this topic is about space, but real quick, did you know that Matt Mercer does some voices of like some of the greatest characters in history ever? So he is like, I'm trying to remember his name. It's Nathan something, but he's the main character in Titanfall 2. He also does the voicing for, shoot, who was that other person? I'm just gonna have to bring up the article real quick. I'm saving
Cush.
the
Yeah,
best.
he is quite a skilled man.
So let's see, he was in Attack on Titan. He was in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Persona 4, One Piece. So this is the video game section. So he was Leon S. Kennedy in Resident Evil. He was Jack Cooper in Titanfall 2. McCree in Overwatch, which I screamed.
Oh yeah, that was it, McCree.
Yeah, he was also in Fallout 4, Pillars of Eternity, all that jazz. But the best one, he voices Crom, which means Matt Mercer, and I looked it up. It is confirmed. Matt Mercer is in Smash Bros.
He's also technically part of Fire Emblem.
Yep. So
He's also in League of Legends.
is he really?
Yeah. Well, so is Travis Willingham, Laura Bailey, and Liam O'Brien.
Cool.
What a skilled group of people.
So
What a lovely skilled group of people.
Okay, so that was my side rant. Sorry. Anyway, space.
I feel like a lot of this podcast is going to be anything but space, and then space will be the filler in between.
Okay, sorry. Kara just shared a meme, and I'm gonna read it now. And I'm gonna do voices too. So, fundamentalist fear-mongering video. This dungeon master is given complete control, and players must do whatever dark things are demanded of them. And then the dungeon master in real life. Please just cross the river. You all tried to seduce the catfish and it didn't work. I'm begging you. That is actually
You posted that?
terrifyingly accurate. I did post that. I forget.
I mean, I did try to intimidate a, what was it called? What was it, a golem? A stone golem? Something like that. I tried to intimidate him, and I actually rolled really high, which was surprising because my intimidation was my intimidation was high, even though I had like the highest pitched voice as a half-orc. It was all the way up here in my falsetto. And then when I tried to comfort him after I scared him, he started attacking all of us and killed your character, McKay.
Good times. If it's any consolation, well, it's not really consolation. It's just like also stupid things that I have seen along that same deal. There was one instance where a bunch of players were exploring the dungeon, and they came upon a really small open room. So instead of, continuing looking, in different rooms, they decided that they were going to insult the room and, by extension, the creator of the dungeon. So I had this little halfling appear in the room, and he was like, "That's not very nice." And so then they kept insulting him. So then he tore off his face because he was actually a Death Knight, and he blew them up.
Ouch.
I mean, yeah.
The end. Happy story.
I think it would be kind of awesome to play as a Death Knight, though.
I will get started on making that a playable class.
Thank you.
We need to do an entire episode on entertaining D&D endeavors.
Okay, this is also true. Anyways.
I came up with an
space.
idea for a new character, but that's neither here nor there.
Also,
Can we talk about the fact that in Interstellar, this is space related. In Interstellar, they had to create a whole engine for the black hole, the Gargantuan.
this is actually true. Their
And
amount of research into the black hole was insane.
so it was really interesting because they were working a while with mathematicians and everything who had studied black holes and their properties and everything. And they plugged in all of these different formulas and whatnot to basically create a visual rendering of what the black hole would look like. And once it came up as what Gargantua looks like, they thought that they did something wrong, but then the like physicist or mathematician, whoever, I'm bad with labels and everything, but basically he came over and he said, no, that's right, because basically you're seeing both sides of the ellipse.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a 3-dimensional hole.
Yeah. It was so beautiful. It was so wonderful.
Right?
Honestly, like, that was some of the most mind-bending visuals I've ever seen in, like, any movie. Besides Doctor Strange, because that was just, like, a total acid trip. But this was just, like, absolutely astounding.
Well, I mean, it's just trying to get your mind around the concept is incredible, because it's...
Yeah.
You try to fit... Like, you're used to a 2-dimensional hole, but then you try to imagine a 3-dimensional hole in space. And it's literally so massive that light is bending around it. And it...
Yeah.
Hyperdimensionality is
Guys.
a fun subject.
Yes.
Guys, I just realized I've been on mute most of this entire time. My marvelous wit has been wasted.
This isn't the
comeback.
first time either.
No, you would think that I would learn my lesson, but nope. I still fall victim to the mute
I
button.
think Alex fell victim to that same blunder.
Oh, I've done the same. Also, you know the black hole picture? You know, the amazing one that came out a while back?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The amazing black hole picture? Why, yes, I do.
So, did you guys know that that's zoomed in?
Yes.
I've had that discussion with several people.
I'm glad.
Yeah, it was definitely zoomed in to show the actual black hole itself, whereas it was not showing all of the stuff being sucked into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there was, I remember reading, articles and stuff where people were screaming about how, we have all this technology and
We
Which-
just got a blurry picture of the black hole. Is that the one that you're talking
Yeah.
about?
Yeah, because it's a really, really zoomed in picture that they're talking about, and they can do the research to see that the real picture is really cool.
Yep. Like most things, actually. A lot of times people just scream without doing research.
It's true.
Sounds
So-
typical.
Is it like in those TV shows when they say like, okay, let's go to the security footage, now enhance. Enhance 12 times. Okay, look, now we have this perfect picture of a license plate. Let's go.
Right? Those are some
Let's go follow them.
impressive cameras.
Enhance.
I know, but like,
Enhance.
it's like that sort of scenario where people think that you can just say enhance and your picture
I'm the
will
best
be just
detective
as
ever.
crystal clear as it was before.
Enhance.
If you've ever seen the How It Should Have Ended lip dub for Blade Runner...
Oh my
2049
word, that was quite...
Or sorry, it's just the
The-
original Blade Runner. But there's this beautiful scene, which is Braden is referencing right now, where, they have the part where Harrison Ford is sitting in front of the computer and he's telling it to enhance. But they parody that scene, and so he's just sitting there staring at the computer, and they go, enhance, enhance, enhance. I'm the best detective ever. Enhance, and oh look, a clue. And he's just screaming at this.
With that kind of technology, you could keep on enhancing and basically find atoms without using that big old computer that people had to develop, that big old microscope,
You're not wrong.
essentially.
Also, this
The
is
super trippy moment is when you enhance enough, you eventually get back to an image of yourself in enhancing the image.
Yeah, if the universe within the universe theory is correct.
Yeah, gotcha.
Speaking of which, okay, stupid article that I read that could actually, validate our theory about life being a simulation.
So why is it stupid?
So it's stupidly awesome because,
Okay.
so to our current understanding of quantum physics, you get down to a level that's so small, so fine that particles do not exist, and you get what's called quantum foam.
Mm-hmm.
And that quantum foam is made up of strings, which is the basis of like string theory and all that. And so essentially what it all comes down to is reality is literally just based on the vibrations of these strings. strings, on the resonance of these infinitesimally small objects. And someone kind of turned around and likened that unto the ones and zeros of a computer. How ultimately the true false of the universe is what makes the universe, and how if you get a big enough simulation, technically, hypothetically, you could have a fully functional universe within a simulation, and by the technical definitions of what reality is, that universe would be just as valid as ours. And I hate everything about that because it's wonderful.
This is
Counter argument to that. So you're saying that it all boils down to string theory and the vibration of strings. I'm thinking that it's just one very big orchestra that's very tiny. That's going on, that's building up the entire universe as we speak.
Interesting.
It's just one very long musical piece.
Guys, do you know what that reminded me of? This completely unrelated video I just watched, and it's glorious. It's about these two guys, and they made a really cool zebra costume. And so they were walking around in the African savannah trying to blend in with other zebras, and none of the zebras liked them. And they were all running away. But then they found out it was because lions were coming and they attacked the people.
That's awful.
That's awful and hilarious.
The video ended with the zebra's head being dragged away.
That's
Or
terrible.
The fake. It was really, really funny.
Okay.
Just so you
Might
know,
have to watch
the
that.
people were wearing armor, so they didn't die.
Okay.
Like, are we talking about chainmail, or are we talking about like modern stuff
Full
that
medieval.
actually could defend you?
We're talking about like modern stuff that could actually defend you from a lion attack.
Oh, okay, good. Because
Almost as if
I was
they
thinking
predicted the
like if you're,
situation.
because I mean like maybe it could defend you from the Black Plague, but that's it.
It was
And
glorious.
even then, probably not.
Here's the thing.
Let's
It's
talk
true,
about
witch doctor.
space armor, aka spacesuits,
It's armor that protects you from space.
which
More or less.
technically means that it's protecting you from nothing.
Well,
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
It's
But-
literally protecting you from nothing.
Yep.
That's
I want
deep,
to
man.
argue, but I can't.
But that's literally what it does. Because if we just put you out in the middle of nothing, you pop.
We don't know
It's true.
that yet, though. Okay, here's my 2 cents. Because this is the one thing I do know about space. We still have no idea what happens to humans if we put them in a vacuum.
Well, we have a general idea, but we're not gonna try it.
Well, yeah,
Why
but like,
not?
we haven't had a single accident where humans have observably popped in space.
I mean, we can run a lot of theories, but we're not gonna intentionally test that. So
No, you're
I'm
not
okay
wrong.
with that.
But that's why it's fascinating, because there are several possibilities for what could happen, and the most likely thing is that they all happen. You know, the likely one is you instantly freeze because the near absolute zero of space would convert all of the water molecules in your body into ice immediately, and that would be bad.
Depending on whether or not that area is 0 Kelvin.
This is also true. But, I mean...
Guys,
you get-
what if space is just like a really nice temperature and we're all just missing out?
It does have a burnt smell. Space does have a burnt smell.
Technically yes, technically no. So that same video with Chris Hadfield, he said that the reason why it has that burnt smell is because, so they describe that burnt smell when astronauts come in,
Yeah.
you know, through the airlock. You know, everything depressurizes, or pressurizes, other way around. Everything pressurizes, you know, they get back in from space and all that jazz. And when they take their helmet off, they describe sort of like a burnt steak, burnt toast smell, kind of a burnt smell. But what Chris Hadfield said is that more than likely that's actually just oxidized particles from the technology inside the space station
That makes sense.
that is being pulled out, that we don't normally smell because of the pressures and gravities of Earth. But because you have that, you know, no pressure, zero gravity-ness of the infinite, it kind of pulls things out. And yes, I know there is still gravity in orbit. Sometimes it's really fun to say, just because Kara's face turns into this, like, it's this beautiful mixture of I love you, but I want to stab your face with a spoon in the face.
I don't want to stab your face with a spoon. Just for the record.
That would be too good for me.
The term is microgravity.
There's microscopic gravity. It's gravity that only works on ants.
To be honest, I thought it was only working on microscopes, but I'm glad you clarified.
They discovered that after they brought a microscope into space, and it weirdly just,
It just shot in one direction.
Weird thing was, it didn't even, fall towards the direction of Earth. It actually shot towards Mars.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Continue,
Go ahead.
Please.
You're thinking a thing.
It doesn't make any more sense than what you guys were saying, but theoretically, if it shot anywhere, it would be tangent to Earth in the direction you're going, because that's how orbits work.
Touche. That's also fair.
Because theoretically, the idea behind microgravity is that there's still gravity, but the way orbits work is you're essentially falling around the Earth. That's why you don't feel the gravity. Because you're still within the gravitational field, it's just you're circling the well, essentially.
Random thought. This occurred to me the other day when I was sitting in traffic. Actually, it was yesterday when I was driving up. So, given time, eventually orbits do decay because, gravity.
Usually friction.
Yeah, and it does take, in most cases, it does take a long time.
It depends on the satellite.
Yeah, this is true. But in cases like the moon around Earth or the Earth around the sun. But in the case of specifically the Earth around the sun, hypothetically, if the Earth were to move just a teeny bit closer to the sun, not a lot, but just a teeny bit, would we be able to tell?
Well, it depends on the scale you're talking, because obviously we can measure the distance from the Earth to the Sun, and that's changing depending on where we are in the orbit, because planetary orbits are elliptical, not circular.
Mm-hmm.
Centimeters, probably not. But if we're talking, measurable amounts of distance, I don't know how much it would take to be able to measure. Generally, the method is based on a phenomenon called parallax.
Mm-hmm.
So you're at one side of the orbit, and you look at this reference point, and then you're on the other side of the point, and you look at this reference point, and through a bunch of geometry, you can figure out distances relative to other stuff. That's a very, very brief overview of how it works.
What's interesting?
If you had enough of a distance to alter any of your measurements, is what it would take.
Interesting. Because my thought was just kind of along the lines of, there's, different ideas, different thoughts about climate change and whatnot. And this was one of the weirdest things that I was thinking of while sitting in traffic. But we do know that certain things that occur within the Earth's core actually have effects upon, how the Earth sits on its axis.
Mm-hmm.
There have been times, so the Earth's axis of rotation has shifted. Even over the last 100 years, earthquakes actually cause its axis, or the Earth itself, to shift slightly along the axis of rotation, which is terrifyingly awesome. So if you have a large enough change within the core of the Earth, could it hypothetically bring it closer to the sun, thereby increasing global temperatures?
Well, the problem with that theory is that in order to have any motion, you have to have an external force.
This is true.
In this case, that's an internal force, so I'm going to have to say no.
Okay.
The only way that could possibly work is if you somehow had a great enough magnitude difference that it changed the magnetic field and that somehow pulled on something else, but I don't think anything would be strong enough to do that.
So fun story. So guess what's happening?
I know the magnetic field is shifting.
You can't see it, but I'm smiling right now.
Yeah, smiling like a dork, and it's adorable.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, there was a point in January where we actually lost the magnetic pole for a little bit because they do shift. They shift normally, but this time, and we have a program that tracks them, because we like to keep track of things like giant magnetic forces, and the magnetic poles, whatever reason, we still don't know why, they randomly had a really violent spasm out of place, and so we lost track of the North Pole for a long time. It wasn't super long, it was like a couple hours, but considering we know where it is like all the time,
Long enough to be weird.
yeah, it was long enough that it was like, what the heck, how did this happen? So what does this mean? Probably not a whole lot, but it can mean that at some point in the future the magnetic poles could shift. Now what would they actually pull on? I don't know. Maybe the center of the sun is randomly very magnetic. No, don't think about it.
You know, as soon as you say that, I'm already thinking about it.
I know, and as soon as I said it, I regretted it.
Well, at least we can determine that the North Pole did shift because Santa did move to a different location unexpectedly.
It's because he's trying to avoid global warming and his home melting away.
It's true.
Actually,
He started
due to
building a
rapid
cottage in Greenland.
Wait, if that's the
Due
case,
to a
we should've
rapid
gone
decline
further.
in believers, he actually has been forced to relocate to a different location, which is why the North Pole shift.
Exactly.
I mean,
The
I
North
get
Pole literally
Pole.
did shift because he moved somewhere else, and that's where the North Pole was.
Santa's magic is the only thing keeping the North Pole frozen, and so the reason global warming is happening is because we aren't believing hard enough. Guys, remember, teach your kids to believe in Santa. Save the Earth.
I mean, that worked in
I mean, I've been to Santa's workshop, so
and as we all know, I am Santa.
it's true.
Except, here's the one thing we don't actually talk about in that scene. Sorry, this is all just sad tangents. The one thing we don't talk about that scene is because Prime has the interface, that means Santa doesn't, which means Santa Claus, as we know it, effectively died in 2018.
Yes,
Well,
but that doesn't mean that
he didn't
that
go
was
to
the last. That doesn't mean that was. He doesn't go in order necessarily.
Because
Touche.
he was traveling around time this entire thing, so he could have just been going through all of the years.
Touche.
And he just happened to get to 2018 after doing 3,000 years worth.
You never know. You never know.
Also depends on whether or not he has offspring.
Wait, hang on. That opens up.
Do we want to go into that right now?
No, because that starts to go down plot points that we haven't actually established in the videos yet, and I don't want to talk about them yet because they're really cool and I don't want to spoil anything.
Yeah, so we're gonna move off the subject of videos because we're still working on those and they haven't been released.
Exactly. Anyway, so
Space.
Except, so we are actually getting pretty close to our time to wrap up. We've been at this for about an hour. So if anyone has any closing comments that they can make within a minute, speak now or forever hold your peace.
I can make many closing comments. Would you like a relevant one or an irrelevant one?
Kara made a relevant one. 5 days. Sorry, one more time, Kara. Go ahead.
5 days ago was the 7-year anniversary of the landing of the Curiosity rover.
It's adorable.
It's wonderful.
Now, is that 7 Earth years or 7 Martian years?
7 Earth years.
Okay.
It
So
landed on August 5th, 2012.
cute. So we need to find out. Oh, I see what they did. They sent it to Mars just in case Earth blew up.
Wait, what?
Do you not remember 2012?
Oh yeah. That was a whole thing, wasn't it? That they thought, yeah, anyway, whatever.
Yeah, and everyone will try to downplay it now, but I remember very vividly. Everyone was.
People were freaking out. It
Oh,
was
yeah.
hilarious.
And
Wait.
everyone will try to be like, well, no, I mean, we all knew it wasn't going to happen. Yeah, but I remember all the shelves missing a lot of food in supermarkets, and I remember a lot of people making really bad decisions that night.
See, I remember the whole apocalypse scenario supposedly going down as soon as midnight hit when we reached 2012, and I thought to myself, doesn't midnight hit in different places in the world at different times?
Yes. Thank
So-
you.
It was all very confusing to me, but
Well, it
if they were
would've
really
been
doing it
at
to avoid the
Aztec
apocalypse,
time,
then they should have launched
because
the
the
Curiosity in
Aztecs-
2011.
Oh my gosh! Actually, I remember that. I remember
So,
something
yeah,
that we did in 2012 to actually celebrate the end of the world. Do you remember this, MK? We were all at our grandma's house because we were there for Thanksgiving because everyone was thinking, oh, it's going to end on what 12/21/2012,
Yeah.
and so um, it was you and me, and then our cousin.
So this would have been
Um,
Christmas, not Thanksgiving.
did I say Thanksgiving?
I mean, it's a great holiday. 10 out of 10.
Oh, I
It's
meant
definitely one of my
Christmas.
favorites.
My apologies. It's delicious because I'm thinking about food. Um, and so we ended up like pulling out some grape cider or something, and then once it hit midnight in our area, and we weren't really thinking about that either. We were all just celebrating, saying, "Hey, it's the end of the world," and so we just had a mini celebration. It was awesome.
Death is great. Um, yeah, the other thing we did, and this is something that we're basically out of time. Long story short, in a previous video stuff, Phoenix Fire Studios, we were working on a series that didn't really ever get off the ground. Although we still do have a lot of
Which
scripts
is
for
funny
it.
because this is a discussion about space.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Ties it all back in. We
Couldn't help myself.
we were working on a post-apocalyptic YouTube series, and we released the first episode on 12/21/12 because we thought that was funny. We could have released it like 2 weeks earlier because everything was set to go then, but that felt more right. So, yeah. Yeah, any last thoughts about space so we can make this relevant to space?
Don't eat a whole jar of peanut butter in space, because then you will be out a jar of peanut butter in space.
Can't get more. Kara's face is pure confusion.
Also, in space, don't rub guacamole in your hair because then you look very silly.
Along those same lines, did you know that Elon Musk, owner of SpaceX, has some really fun, weird tweets? And he also has a
I
car
love
parked
his
in
Twitter
space.
account. I love his Twitter account. It's really cringy, and like he has a lot of anime memes that make me kind of cringe a little, but I absolutely love it because he is like the CEO of like 3 different companies, and he just does not take life seriously as you think CEOs should.
I mean, he put a car in space and it was awesome.
I know, exactly.
Yeah.
I freaking love Elon Musk. He is my inspiration.
Yeah,
I
about
enjoyed around
that.
the time
He has had
coined the term RUD when he was explaining what went wrong.
he's had that car parked in space for a while. How many tickets do you think he has?
Space cops.
That is a very good question.
Space meter maids. Space meter parking. Space.
Listen, I mean,
Space
meter
information.
maids are pretty terrifying. Have you ever actually met a meter maid?
I have not.
That's because
Exactly.
they're everywhere. Meter maids aren't an actual thing. They're more like a force. They just exist and write tickets, which is why Elon Musk now has like 12 million tickets on his car.
On that note, we are actually going to end this episode of Cush. Next time we record one of these, if we're able to do D&D, we're going to do that. If not, we're going to finally talk about all the evidences about why life is a simulation, just a simple game, and why Kara is the player character. So, yeah, that'll be our next time. But thank you for joining us, and we hope you have an excellent Tuesday. Peace out.
Bye.
Ciao.
And we don't have that guitar outro, so
Ba-da-da-dum.
Guitar outro noises.
Ding, ding, ding.